You know how we always talk about when we're evaluating title contenders? We just we look at the very basic resume and we say, okay, if you're top 10 offense, you're top 10 defense, then you're in the conversation, right? You are balanced and legitimately good on both sides of the ball. I feel like we need to have a conversation about the opposite of that, the lottery contenders. And the Wizards right now are 23 and 26, but right now they're bottom 10 offense and bottom 10 defense, which does not bode well for them for the rest of the season. They have so many guys, like they're really struggling with their rotation. Daniel Gafford, they just gave Daniel Gafford a $40 million 3-year extension, and he's out of the rotation now. They had a game a couple of weeks ago where Denny Avdia, who was the number 9 pick a couple of years ago and has been really good defensively, didn't play. Now you've got Beal dealing with this wrist injury, and I think the questions as we approach the trade deadline are legitimately coming up. Bradley Beal is a unrestricted free agent after this season. It's finally happening. It feels like he's been a pending unrestricted free agent for the last 2.5 decades, and it's finally coming up to the point where the contract is expiring. And I think there are questions about what to do about Bradley Beal and what's about to come of his future. We've heard forever about Beal wanting to stay and Beal wanting to be there, but I don't think it's necessarily a slam dunk that he's just coming back and re-signing for the 5-year, 35% max that he's eligible for come this summer. And I am very curious to see what they're going to end up doing here.
You know what should be noted? He's not having a good season. I mean, he's shooting. He just got over 30% from three. He's currently right at 30.0% from three. I think maybe career low in overall field goal percentage too, or maybe not career low, but worse since like he was second, third year in the league. And it's just, the story of the last couple of seasons, even through their struggles, even through kind of their tug of war with Russell Westbrook, was like, well, he's still like, he's leading the league in scoring. He's, this all NBA force. I'm not necessarily sitting here saying like he's declining, but as we discuss, some mega max that the Wizards might have to get him, should the Wizards get off of him before, he tries to get off of them, basically. Like, he's just like, where is he at right now in his career? Is this the start of a downturn for him or just an off season?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's really interesting with him, you look at the efficiency numbers, and you're right, like the effective field goal percentage, a true shooting percentage, or they're the lowest. He's always been very high volume, but really good efficiency, 58 to 60% true shooting, which is a really good number. And that's really fallen this year. In part, I think he's been one of the big guys who's been affected by the new fouling rules. His free throw rate is pretty substantially down. I think that's hurt him. And you're right, he's just not hitting the three. And I kind of thought when they were 10-3 at the start of the year, like, okay, they're not this good. But I kind of thought, okay, maybe they're a 45-win team, because even as these other guys start to regress, like Beal shooting 25% from three at the time, he's going to start to play like the Bradley Beal that we know. And he's just been down this year. I think you're right. I think you have to question 5-year, 35% max for a guy coming off a year like that. I wonder though, for years and years and years, there's been the talk of, does Beal want to stay? And I feel like the whole league kind of got to a point where it was just like, okay, he wants to do it. He wants to be loyal to the Wizards. He really values that 5th year, as I reported many times when I was, on the beat covering them. He really values having, control and power within the organization. And he thinks it's very important to him to kind of be the guy within the realm of franchise history. I remember talking to him. This was shoot around opening day 2019. He was pissed at me. He had just extended, and he was pissed at me for asking him about what loyalty meant to him, because he said he re-signed for loyalty and legacy. I can't remember. I was asking him either what loyalty or what legacy meant to him. And he was annoyed because he thought the insinuation was me saying, well, you didn't really do it for loyalty and legacy. This was in Dallas, and they had just put that silhouette of Dirk on the court, and he's staring at that silhouette. And he finally says, you know what legacy is? That's legacy. And he points to the silhouette of Dirk. He's like, that's what I want. It's beyond just your number hanging in the arena. It's the silhouette on the floor. That's what I want here. But at the same time, they've fallen off. And I think the organization has spoken with a lot of confidence about their ability to bring him back. Their president, Tommy Shepard, just did an interview a couple weeks ago with Josh Robbins, our Wizards beat reporter, who does a great job, saying the plan is the same as it's always been. But I don't think, from just people I've talked to, I'm not as confident now that he is definitely going to come back. I wouldn't be sitting here betting my life on the fact that Bradley Beal is on the Wizards next season, either because a trade comes or a sign and trade comes or whatever else. Even though I'm still making them the favorites.
To your point, Fred, and great perspective there as always. Brad's idea of being the Dirk of DC, if you will. I get that in spirit, you know what I mean? But I think the tipping point that we've reached now comes largely as a result of, if you take a quick second to compare the career arcs of Bradley Beal and Dirk Nowitzki, just to stay with that for a second. He's 28 years old, Brad is. And I'm looking here at good old Basketball Reference. By the time Dirk was 28 years old, obviously he had not won a championship yet. He'd been in one finals. He, roughly speaking, he had competed in about 13 or 14 individual playoff series. And you just had this long history of being in the mix. You know what I mean? And so the level of optimism and hope for somebody like Dirk, that kind of success, while not ultimate success, is going to keep you from looking other places and thinking that the grass might be greener. That's just not been Brad's experience. And now, more specific to this season, I wondered, as far as his play, what are you seeing beyond things like the foul changes and things of that nature? Because this is really stark to have this kind of decline. You mentioned the true shooting percentage. He's around 53% this year. It's his worst since the 2014-15 campaign. I would love to know, we all know that Philly has had Bradley Beal on their list of Ben Simmons trade targets for quite some time.
He's among the 25, is he?
Yeah, I would think he's among the 5. You know what I mean? Like, well, not the 5. Let me back
over
that up.
Giannis?
No. That's the thing. The list is always deceiving,
yes.
Because Giannis,
there's 20 players who are just like unobtainable,
right? But they are on the list because that's how the process works. Pun intended.
LeBron James on the list.
Yes. Although Jokic, is Jokic on the list? You got a big fella. Who knows? But I wonder if the Sixers...
I would say you would maybe trade Ben Simmons for Nikola Jokic right now and figure the rest out later. I think you might do that.
Embiid and Jokic together. Talk about Twin Towers. But like Brad's current play, and you wonder how that impacts the calculus within the Sixers, analysis of the situation.
Sure. Look, if you break it down further, and you mentioned Spencer Dinwiddie, I think part of the reason the reports like that come out about Spencer Dinwiddie isn't just because of individual play. Like him and Beal, they've had their moments where they've been good together, but those guys have not consistently figured out a way to have strong on-court chemistry. And you look at Beal's numbers with Dinwiddie on the floor and Dinwiddie's numbers with Beal on the floor, and then you look at them without the other guy. You look at the team numbers, however you want to look at it, like those guys have not meshed together like the Wizards would hope that they would. And I think that's definitely been part of it. From a basketball perspective, if you put Beal in Philadelphia, by the way, he's perfect with Embiid. He's a good pick and roll player. I have to imagine the 3-point shot comes back. One of the weird trends of Beal's career is that he came into the league as like the guy who he was compared to was kind of off-ball Ray Allen. That's who he was supposed to be, right? And then he turns into this kind of ball dominant combo guard who's running pick and rolls and running an offense. There was a game earlier this year where all their point guards were out. He had to play point the whole time, and he had 17 assists. I do think he's a better passer than he's ever been now. He's a legitimately good passer.
Career high in assists this year, 6.6.
Yeah, he's really become a very good passer. And so, I think he would work tremendously with Joel Embiid. By the way, those two guys have the same individual trainer, and I know they have a personal relationship because of that. But I just, I don't know how much of his season has to do with, Wizards specific context versus something else that, is just basketball related or life related or whatever. But he's definitely had, a down season compared to the past couple of years when he was averaging an efficient 30.
6th worst 3-point shooter in basketball among guys who've taken at least 200, right? I'm talking about high volume guys. He's the 6th worst, and Dinwiddie is the 11th worst. Yeah. Those are your 2 high volume scorers, and they're can't hit threes. You cannot have a good offense if that's going on. And when we talk about Wizards specific situations. To me, last year, the problem was, kind of the Westbrook anchor next to him. And you felt like Beal was having this monster season, but the environment around him was dragging him down. Well, they made a really good Westbrook trade. I mean, I don't know how many times we've come on the podcast and really kind of hat tip Tommy Shepard for that move. Kuzma's had a good season. I think Harrell's helped, and KCP's a solid player. To me, like, their record right now is more reflective of like what we're talking about, his poor play and like the bad fit with him and Dinwiddie, which we thought was going to be a much better fit.
Yeah, I think they're in a position right now to where, I mean, we're recording this Monday afternoon, so 10 days out from the trade deadline. I think they're in a position right now to where no matter what approach they take, whether they're 100% confident that Beal is coming back and we're operating as if Beal is re-signing this summer, or whether they think he's not coming back, I expect them to be very active in talks over these next 10 days. Like, I don't know if they'll end up pulling off a move or not, because who knows, sometimes the rug gets pulled out from under you, or you don't end up, getting somebody for the value that you think they're worth or whatever. But I expect them to be very active, because even if they think, Bradley Beal is 100% here, or Bradley Beal is 95% here, we just have to push it over the edge to show that we can really be competitive, make it into the play-in, which will eventually make us, throw us into the playoffs if you win there. I wouldn't be surprised if they went after one of the conventional big names that are out there, a Sabonis. I'm sure they're going to be active in there, and a number of other names that I feel like they could get involved with, just seeing how they can make their team better, because they have a lot of guys. Like they have like 13 guys. Like Aaron Holiday is not playing much. He's had a pretty good year. Daniel Gafford was out of the rotation this past game. I don't think they would want to trade Gafford. They really like him. But they have 3 centers, and Harrell's expiring. Thomas Bryant is expiring. You don't need 3 centers who demand playing time. There are moves that they can make, 3-for-1 moves, things like that, which could bring in a quality player that could help them. And it doesn't necessarily have to destroy your future either.